The narrative kicks off with a glimpse of a bustling city where life unfolded in its usual rhythm, cars navigating the streets, people engrossed in their daily routines. Yet, amidst this semblance of normalcy, a Japanese businessman found himself stranded at a traffic signal, his car refusing to budge despite his attempts. While the procession of vehicles continued, he remained stationary, grappling with the encroaching blindness that hindered his ability to operate the car. The businessman, engulfed in disorientation, drew the attention of honking vehicles behind him and concerned onlookers who failed to comprehend the abrupt onset of his vision loss. Following this, we encounter a kind-hearted man who offers assistance to the stranded businessman by driving him towards his destination. Unbeknownst to the businessman, this seemingly helpful individual is actually a cunning thief feigning benevolence to abscond with the car. Subsequently, the thief accompanies the businessman to his residence, where he seizes the opportunity to steal the car and make a swift getaway. Stranded in the midst of the road, and the Japanese businessman grapples with his predicament of sudden blindness, unsure of his next course of action. As the thief returns, he adopts a different identity to deceive the visually impaired man, aiming to execute a complete robbery. In a bid to protect himself, the businessman invites the thief into his apartment, where the thief attempts to pilfer valuables from the expansive premises. Realizing the true identity of the thief, the blind man discerns the ruse. Refusing to allow the thief entry into his home, the businessman secures the premises by locking the door. Shortly thereafter, his wife arrives and is dismayed to find her husband in such a distressed state. She promptly escorts him to a doctor for evaluation. Despite undergoing numerous tests, no eye-related ailment is uncovered in the businessman. The doctor, acknowledging the clarity of the man's vision, suspects a potential neurological issue and advises the couple to seek further medical attention at a hospital for a more comprehensive assessment. Meanwhile, the narrative shifts to the thief, who was in possession of a stolen vehicle and navigating the roads. Spotting a police car stationed by the roadside, fear seized the thief upon sighting law enforcement. In a bid to elude the authorities, the thief hastily concealed the stolen car in a discreet location. Struggling with deteriorating vision, the thief grappled with encroaching blindness. Subsequently, with the assistance of a police constable, the thief made his way back home. However, upon arrival, he faced resistance from his wife, who, aware of his criminal activities, barred him from entering their residence. Subsequently, here was Alice, the woman with glasses who still retained some vision. She embarked on a car journey to a hotel for a business meeting, only to suddenly lose her sight entirely. Meanwhile, the doctor, after returning home, savored a home-cooked meal prepared by his wife, Juliana. Satisfied, he retired for the night. However, upon awakening, the doctor found himself stricken with blindness. In stark contrast, his wife remained unaffected, observing his deteriorating condition with mounting anxiety. Concerned by the pattern of individuals losing their sight, the doctor speculated about a contagious virus causing this phenomenon. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the doctor urgently contacted another physician at the hospital, highlighting the emergence of a new epidemic causing blindness. Moreover, the blindness continued to spread throughout the entire city, engulfing an ever-growing population. The pervasive blindness prompted the government of the nation to intervene, recognizing the magnitude of the crisis. Initially, the government noted that all the patients of the aforementioned doctor had lost their sight. Consequently, a decision was made to seal off the doctor's clinic as a precautionary measure, acknowledging the possibility of an airborne transmission of the illness. It was observed that all individuals who had sought treatment from the doctor were now afflicted with blindness. In order to place the doctor under quarantine, he was transferred via ambulance to a specialized hospital designated for treating such extraordinary cases. Initially, only Juliana and her husband occupied the hospital, with numerous wards set up within its confines. As time passed, additional patients began arriving at the hospital, including the Japanese businessman, Alice, with her distinctive glasses, and others under the care of the doctor. Subsequently, as all the patients sought the bathroom in the hospital, Juliana, who could still see, discreetly observed the situation. Aware that some individuals were unaware of her ability to see, She continued to feign blindness, leading the visually impaired individuals to the restroom. During the queue to the bathroom, Alice inadvertently felt a hand on her body, triggering a surge of panic. Reacting swiftly, Alice employed the high heel she wore to defend herself, injuring the thief who had approached her. The thief's leg sustained a severe wound from the encounter, yet with no medical personnel present to provide treatment, the situation grew dire. Moved by the plight of the wounded thief, Juliana intervened by handing a piece of cloth to her husband. Together, they, along with the others present, improvised a makeshift bandage to staunch the bleeding and attend to the thief's injured leg in the absence of professional medical care. As more patients streamed into the hospital, among them the wife of a businessman, the atmosphere became increasingly crowded. Particularly notable was the arrival of the Japanese businessman's wife, who had also fallen victim to the same virus-induced blindness. Reunited within the confines of the hospital, the couple exuded a sense of shared happiness despite the somber circumstances. Feeling a deep sense of affection for the child, Alice took it upon herself to care for him, recognizing the dire state of the wound on his body. In an effort to address the worsening condition of the wound, the doctor and his wife, Juliana, sought assistance from the military, who, however, expressed fear and reluctance, warning that they might be shot if they ventured further. Faced with this perilous choice between their own safety and the lives of others, the couple opted to depart from the military's presence. The scanty and unappetizing food only served to compound the deteriorating situation, leading to a decline in everyone's well-being. Juliana attempted to reach out to the hospital staff via the telephone provided in the hospital, requesting both food and medicine for the patients. Despite her persistent efforts, her calls went unanswered, leaving the hospital isolated in its struggle to cope with the influx of new patients. With each passing day, more patients were admitted to the hospital, filling up every available space within the ward. Among them was a blind individual who, surreptitiously tuning into the radio for news updates, caught Juliana's attention. Armed with a small radio, the man had access to vital information about the country's state of affairs, yet chose to withhold certain details due to the worsening conditions. The erosion of order and respect within the hospital, coupled with the pervasive sense of despair among the patients, underscored the profound challenges they faced in a world rapidly descending into chaos. Initially, the disease afflicted only a small number of individuals, but its spread soon encompassed the entire nation. As more patients succumbed to blindness, they were segregated into specialized hospitals by the government, a measure aimed at preventing the further spread of the affliction to unaffected individuals. However, despite these efforts, the situation continued to deteriorate rather than improve, with the prevalence of blindness escalating with each passing day. In an attempt to contain the crisis, the government enforced strict measures, compelling the blind to remain confined within their homes. Yet, the confinement proved challenging for many, prompting some to defy the directives and venture outside. In response to this disobedience, the military resorted to drastic measures, resulting in casualties among the populace, including government officials who themselves fell victim to the blindness. Subsequently, with the collapse of the government, chaos ensued as societal order disintegrated, leading to a series of catastrophic incidents such as plane and helicopter crashes, leaving behind a trail of death and blindness. The harrowing accounts of these events weighed heavily on the minds of those in the hospital, instilling a sense of despair and hopelessness about the prospect of recovery. Amidst the prevailing chaos, a sense of desolation permeated the populace as the government, once viewed as a beacon of hope, had vanished. Despite the widespread blindness afflicting the population, not all individuals in the world succumbed to the affliction. One day, as the military gathered a group of blind individuals, a man emerged from his house. In a tragic turn of events, a military personnel fatally shot this man, believing him to be non-compliant. The military's intent was to prevent further individuals from succumbing to blindness, instilling fear among the remaining blind individuals at the sound of the gunshots. Amidst this turmoil, Juliana took it upon herself to attend to the fallen man's body, a task overlooked by the military in the aftermath of the incident. Despite the military providing directions, Juliana initially hesitated, veering off course to avoid revealing her own blindness inadvertently. After a moment of uncertainty, Juliana eventually corrected her path and proceeded in the intended direction as instructed by the military. After confronting the military defiantly, she gestures dismissively and walks away, leaving them behind. Subsequently, the head of Ward 1 ventures into Ward 3, sparking speculation among the inhabitants about a possible collaboration between the two wards. As the bodies are laid to rest in a collective burial, the doctor voices concerns about overeating among the blind residents of Ward 3, urging them to exercise greater responsibility in their consumption. In response to the doctor's admonishment, laughter erupts among the inhabitants, except for one individual who boldly declares himself the king of Ward 3, asserting their right to indulge more than others. In a show of solidarity, the rest of the blind residents rally behind this self-proclaimed king, aligning their actions with his decree. The doctor, met with such defiance, departs from the scene, signaling a discord between the medical staff and the residents of Ward 3. Meanwhile, Juliana investigates the condition of a particular patient, the thief, noting a significant deterioration in his health since their last encounter. Witnessing the worsening infection, Juliana is moved to extend her assistance to the ailing thief, compelled by a sense of compassion and duty to alleviate his suffering. The thief confronts Juliana, asserting his knowledge of her sightedness and threatening to expose her secret to the others. Overwhelmed by the thief's accusations, Juliana is consumed by distress, finding solace only in her tears as she grapples with the weight of his words. As the thief's deteriorating health drives him to seek aid at the military outpost. Despite the military's warnings to stay back, the thief persists in approaching them, prompting a soldier to take aim and fatally shoot him. The thief's tragic demise plunges Juliana into profound sorrow, her anguish palpable as she mourns his death. In her grief, she confides in her husband, the doctor, contemplating revealing her sightedness to assist others in need. However, the doctor cautions against such a revelation, emphasizing the repercussions of being exposed as sighted and the necessity of maintaining her guise as his devoted nurse. Simultaneously, the self-proclaimed king of Ward 3 asserts his authority by claiming control of the hospital's control room, declaring himself the ruler of the blind hospital to his mother, solidifying his position of power within the confines of the institution. This leader mandates that in exchange for meals, everyone must perform tasks and relinquish their possessions. Infuriated by these new demands, the blind residents express their discontent and flock to the nurses' quarters in search of sustenance. As overcrowding prevents everyone from accessing the food supply, the leader resorts to violence with the help of accomplices, resulting in the deaths of several individuals. Following these tragic events, the previously blind man in Ward 3 assumes the position of authority akin to a legitimate monarch. Tensions escalate further when the leader acquires an ally, instilling fear and silence among the blind populace. In a climate of fear and coercion, the blind residents conform to the leader's demands, surrendering their valuable items and money in exchange for sustenance. Failure to comply with these demands leads to exclusion from the food supply, as illustrated by a young boy who lacks the means to contribute. Moved by compassion, Alice steps in to provide funds from her own resources to ensure the young boy receives nourishment. To monitor compliance with the leader's requirements, a blind individual is tasked with overseeing the exchange of money and valuables, perpetuating a cycle of control and manipulation within the community. Upon observing the situation, the leader distributed meager rations to the residents, which proved insufficient for their needs. Realizing this shortfall, the leader approached the doctor, requesting an increase in the food supply. However, in a shocking turn of events, the leader led the doctor to the morgue, leaving the doctor devastated and disheartened by the grim outcome. Struggling with his inability to effect positive change and feeling overwhelmed by the circumstances, the doctor's mental state began to deteriorate. Frustrated by his powerlessness to help those in need, the doctor spiraled into despair, sensing his efforts were futile and likening his role to that of a neglected animal. The following day, the new leader demanded additional funds for food, provoking dismay among the blind community who expressed their inability to provide more resources. Facing this collective resistance, Juliana approached a guard, questioning the sudden scarcity of food. The guard, representing the military, disclosed that the food supply had been depleted by previous leaders who had retained a portion for themselves, leaving the residents in a dire situation. On that particular evening, the ailing individuals of Wardak engaged in conversations amongst themselves. The physician emphasized the importance of not engaging in conflict if someone were to offer money for sustenance. The alternative, he suggested, was to accept quietly or face the grim reality of perishing without a struggle. Subsequently, a group of women set out towards Ward 3 in search of provisions. Tragically, before their arrival, a member of their party met a fatal end, deterring them from proceeding to Ward 3. The subsequent day brought forth another emissary of the leader, who declared that in order to obtain food, payment in both money and costly items was mandatory. Witnessing this injustice, Juliana found herself unable to contain her emotions any longer. Despite her purported blindness, she perceived the situation with clarity and took matters into her own hands by eliminating the leader. In a chilling proclamation, she warned that any further requests for food would result in fatal consequences, asserting her ability to perceive everything, despite claiming to be sightless. Upon learning of these events, Juliana's husband became incensed. He was aware of Juliana's deception regarding her blindness, and understood that if this information became public, a significant conflict would ensue, and indeed, tensions escalated. The inhabitants of Ward 3 who possessed provisions found themselves isolated as nobody dared to approach them. Consequently, they made way for the approaching blind residents of Wardak, who sought retribution. In a tragic turn of events, a blind woman from Wardak set Ward 3 ablaze, resulting in the deaths of many individuals. The fire raged unchecked as no one arrived to extinguish the flames, leaving a scene of devastation in its wake. Gradually, the entire structure was consumed by fire. In a courageous act to rescue her companions, Juliana led them out of the burning building. Despite her awareness that the military would execute everyone if they emerged, she was startled by the absence of any military presence. Subsequently, Juliana unlocked the main gate and guided everyone to safety. Together, they returned to their city, feeling a sense of shame for the events that had unfolded at the hospital. Upon exiting the medical facility, they were greeted by a transformed reality. Even though they remained unseen by others, Juliana possessed a unique ability to perceive her surroundings clearly. She diligently described the turmoil surrounding them to those in her company, revealing the chaotic state of the world around them. In this vast nation, scarcity reigned as the blind populace grappled with the scarcity of food. The sheer size of the place made it exceedingly arduous to procure sustenance for all, given that every individual was afflicted by blindness. Amidst this dire situation, conflicts erupted as people vied against each other for food. An illustrative scene depicted a man transporting goods to the market on a cart, encapsulating the desperation and discord that had gripped the society. Upon hearing this, the blind man present launched an assault on the aforementioned individual and seized all the food. Subsequently, Juliana escorted her friends to a bar, concealing them from harm. In an effort to secure provisions, Juliana and her husband, accompanied by a doctor, ventured to a supermarket. Despite an extensive search within the supermarket, they failed to locate the desired sustenance. Consequently, Juliana proceeded to explore the storeroom. As she emerged with some food, the blind men outside caught wind of her presence and clamored for the provisions. In a bid to protect his wife, the doctor intervened, eliminating the threat and ensuring their safe exit from the perilous situation. And when they were going to their house, it suddenly started raining. The arrival of rain brought immense joy to everyone, as they had endured days without even a drop of water to drink. Consequently, they reveled in the downpour, relishing the opportunity to quench their thirst and bathe in the refreshing precipitation. Juliana and her husband proceeded to their residence, where their remaining friends had gathered. Unconventionally, Juliana, unfazed by her lack of attire, returned home and distributed food to all present. After a prolonged period of scarcity, everyone indulged in a hearty meal, savoring the nourishment that had been scarce for so long. The following day, Juliana led everyone from their current city to a new location in another city, where they settled in a house. Life in the new abode was harmonious as they maintained cleanliness diligently. A key rule they adhered to was staying indoors unless necessary, particularly when food wasn't required. During rainfall, they ventured outside to collect rainwater, a crucial resource for sustenance. Despite their circumstances, they harbored hopes for a different future, refusing to resign themselves to this way of life indefinitely. Their bond grew stronger as they navigated their existence together, akin to a tight-knit family. The Doctor and Juliana shared living quarters, while the Japanese businessman and Tarbo formed another household. Each day passed comfortably, fostering a sense of contentment among all residents. One fateful day, the Japanese businessman, previously affected by blindness, experienced a miraculous restoration of his sight. Overjoyed by this unexpected turn of events, he expressed his delight and engaged in animated conversations. The residents of the house, witnessing this remarkable transformation, shared in the businessman's happiness. Their spirits lifted as they dared to hope that Taro's condition would gradually improve, although they understood that rectifying the chaos in the world would be a slow and arduous process. Despite the long road ahead, a sense of optimism permeated their community. Each member held on to the belief that Taro would continue to progress, fostering an atmosphere of laughter and joy among them. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.